Fridälskade vänner och välkomna till dagens uppdatering. Jag tänker faktiskt lägga in 3 stycken klipp som kommer att tala för sig själv. Tom ljugs i båda klippen. Och så kommer det ett sista klipp efteråt som talar om Sydafrikas anmälan av Israel som troligen straffar sig. Våldsamma väderförändringar i Sydafrika, vänner. Vågor som dånar in 10 meter höga. Detta kan vara den förbannelse som drabbar den nation eller det folk som går emot Israel enligt första Mosebok. Håll till godo så hörs vi igen. Amen.
If that's okay.
Yeah, let's dive right in and talk about it.
All right, let's roll, everybody. And by the way, Britt is on Substack. You can check that out. You see that in your description. You're going to be really blessed to go to his Substack. So check it out. We have the link there. Okay, Britt, end of petrodollar. I read about this threat coming from Saudi Arabia a couple of weeks back. I talked a little bit about it on a Sunday night when the news first started coming out. What's going on, and where can this lead to? I know that's loaded, and let's take it.
Sure. Well, to really understand it, you have to go back in time to really World War II, when they had something called the Bretton Woods Agreement. And that basically was the United States had most of the world's gold at that point in time. And they agreed to back up 40% of the dollar with gold, and it was convertible by other nations on demand. The dollar was convertible into gold. And other nations then link their currency's value to the US dollar, and that was the global monetary system from 1944 until 1971, when, following the Great Society programs and the war in Vietnam, the United States was just deficit spending, and they were getting a lot of requests for redemptions into gold for those dollars from a number of countries, most prominently France. And Nixon closed the gold window, meaning he severed the convertibility of the US dollar to gold. That meant that the global monetary system at that time completely changed. We went from really a gold standard in the United States to a fiat currency, which means exactly what it says. Its value is derived from the government just claiming that it has value and people believing in that. Unsurprisingly, you lived in the 1970s, you saw a bunch of inflation as a result of that, because when you print more currency units and they're chasing the same number of goods and services, you see the price of those goods and services go up. We're all aware of how that works the last few years, as we've seen something similar happen. But in order to keep the dollar from simply completely collapsing into hyperinflation in the 1970s, the Nixon administration negotiated something which is called the petrodollar agreement in 1974. And essentially that agreement said the United States will militarily agree to defend the Saudi royal family. We will protect the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. And in exchange, Saudi Arabia will agree to only accept US dollars in exchange for its oil. And then it would then take those dollars and buy U.S. treasuries, U.S. debt with those dollars. And that underpinned global demand for the U.S. dollar and for U.S. debt from 1974 up until the present day. And so all of OPEC eventually agreed to do the same thing. Now, when we had news come out that this, agreement hadn't been renewed, there was a lot of criticism and a lot of, I believe, government propaganda going out saying, well, there was never any agreement. And of course, there was never an official, say, treaty that was confirmed by the Senate and signed by the president. But this was more of a behind closed doors deal. But we can see that it's reality by what happened on the ground. Well, oil was only traded for dollars, and now we're seeing that it is not being exclusively traded for dollars. And so that demand for oil, which every country in the nation needs, required other nations, other companies, other individuals to go out and acquire dollars in exchange for oil. Now that's not necessarily the case. And so as we see use of the US dollar begin to fade away, we will see other currencies being used for this oil. We'll see demand drop for the US dollar. And that means those dollars come back to the United States and drive inflation, because as there's less demand but the same supply, you're going to see the purchasing power of the dollar is going to decline significantly.
Wow. Man, so we look at this and think, okay, this will change the dynamics, however, of the whole globe, because if it affects the United States, if it has too much of a negative effect on the United States, it will also affect China, from what I understand. I mean, there's no nation that would be really immune to that, correct?
Right. This has global repercussions. Every person on the planet will be affected by this, because there's other dynamics that take place. Again, that demand for U.S. debt is also going to wane. We're already seeing this when you look at central banks and what they hold as reserve currencies. We're seeing gold, just I believe a month or so ago, overtook the euro as the most widely held reserve currency or reserve asset. And it's chasing the dollar. And so as other nations look at, especially our debt, again, as the purchasing power of the dollar begins to decline, then that means that investors will demand a higher interest rate for holding long-term U.S. debt. That's something that the Fed can't control. When people hear about the Federal Reserve set interest rates, that's really short-term interest rates. It's not long-term interest rates, which drives mortgage interest rates, and it directly impacts the national debt and the interest that's paid, which is over $1 trillion a year at this point. And so at some point, as these interest rates go up and demand for U.S. debt goes away, it requires the Federal Reserve to either allow the United States to default or to go out and print dollars to buy that debt back to suppress the interest rates, which then leads to massive inflation and a loss of purchasing power. And the U.S. debt market is the largest debt market in the world, largest, most liquid debt market in the world. It underpins almost every financial transaction on Earth. So again, yes, this impacts everyone on the Earth. No country will be immune for this. We're all interconnected at this point through trade and the international supply chain. So this is going to have a major impact, and it really means ultimately waning power and influence of the United States. The United States, on this current trajectory, the United States it won't necessarily cease to exist in the same way that, say, the British Empire didn't cease to exist, but it broke apart, its power waned, its influence waned. The United Kingdom still exists today. You can still go to London today. You can still get a British pound today, but none of those things have the influence that they had 120 years ago. And we're going to see the same thing happen with the United States.
Wow. Okay, I'm going to ask you two questions, maybe help walk all of our viewers and listeners through this. One of them, if you can put it into maybe some kind of illustration to help people understand how great just $1 trillion is, when you mentioned this is our debt per year right now, $1 trillion. That's an enormous number. And it's just, I don't think most people even can begin to comprehend how big that number is. The second one is, we have all this debt. Who are our biggest, who do we owe the most debt to? And how's that going to, I mean, that's another big problem. Who we owe money to, and how, and the different entities that the debt, how it works out with our debtors, I guess. So first of all, Trillion. How big is that number? I mean, I know how big it is, but it's hard to fathom it.
Well, I mean, you think about it, it's what, a thousand billion.
Yeah.
It's sort of incomprehensible. I don't know if you have a better illustration using time and how many seconds
Yeah.
a dollar would take or anything like that.
So, well, I did have one. I remember calculating it out a long time ago. I wish I had the numbers in front of me. But if you took like a million seconds ago and you went back in time, you find out a million seconds is only, I think it's only like a week and a half or something like that, or a month and a half. I can't remember exactly what it was, right? You go back a billion seconds, so that's times 1,000. So you go back, I don't remember how many years it is, but it's not, I don't know, is it like 10 years or something like that? I can't remember exactly what it is. Somebody will do the math for us and we'll get it. But if you go back 1 trillion seconds, you come out to something like 15,000 BC or something like that. It's a crazy number. It predates Adam and Eve. Okay, 1 million seconds ago is 11 days. That's a week and a half, all right? Maybe they'll calculate for us whatever a billion seconds ago is. I think we're going to get that in just a second to help people put this together. So 1 million seconds ago is 11 days. I tell you what, while they're working on a billion seconds ago and 1 trillion seconds ago, why don't you talk through the debt that we owe, who we owe these things to, and why this is such an enormous problem?
Well, it's owed to various really individuals and entities, governments all around the world, as well as domestically. But it really doesn't matter, because what can't be paid back will not be paid back. And so as we talked about before, this is going to affect every man, woman, and child on the face of the planet, because the debt will be defaulted on. Now, the question is, we've already seen this default since 1971 with the purchasing power of the dollar eroding. So that's not technically a default, but the U.S. is paying back its debt obligations with devalued dollars. And we're going to continue to see that until eventually it simply falls apart and people lose faith in the dollar itself. And then what happens is what we have seen the past few years in Venezuela, where the streets are littered with paper currency and it's used to wrap presents or, make origami out of it. And so in the street, it's not used to actually purchase goods and services. And so we're going to see, we already are seeing a default on this debt, but eventually it just completely falls apart. And again, this comes back to the power and influence of the United States, because this fits hand in hand with what we're seeing in the Red Sea. These two aren't mutually exclusive. They fit together like a hand in a glove. So the United States, having the world's reserve currency, being able to print for the last 50 years, they could print dollars to purchase oil. Oil being the energy in total being the most important input on the planet as far as economic activity. There's a direct correlation between energy used and economic activity. There's no poor countries on Earth that are using lots of energy, right? Or there's no countries on Earth that are rich that aren't using energy. There's a direct correlation. So our ability to print dollars for energy was a huge benefit, and that enabled us, and has enabled us, to create a military that projects power around the globe. And in part, what made the US dollar the dominant trade currency, the world's reserve currency, was that we used that military to open up the world's waterways and make sure they're freely navigable for international trade. And so these two things fit together and prop each other up. But now we are seeing that is no longer the case. It's not a matter of, has this happened? What's happening? But if we go back to December of 2023, we see the United States launch what was called Operation Prosperity Guardian, which was with a U.S.-led coalition with several other nations to open up the Red Sea and ensure the free navigation of the Red Sea. That has failed. We're over 6 months past that point in time, and the Houthis continue to assault more ships in the Red Sea than they were back in December when that operation was launched. The United States has expended over $1 billion in munitions alone. That doesn't include the operational cost for sending naval assets over to the Red Sea. And yet traffic, so the Red Sea Suez Canal corridor is responsible for anywhere from 10 to 15% of the world's trade, and 90% of that trade has disappeared since December.
Wow.
So think about the impact of that. Now that trade's being rerouted around the Cape of Good Hope, but at great expense. It's using, it's a logistical nightmare for shipping companies because it takes extra time to travel, which means those vessels aren't available to run a new route as soon as they otherwise would have been. And so this is sending a huge message to anyone that would align themselves with the United States. They're no longer capable of doing this because it's only certain countries, Russia, China, and a lot of the BRICS nations, they aren't having a problem navigating the Red Sea. It's the United States and its allies. And we hear in the news media, well, the Houthis, they claim they're doing this in response to Israel and Israel's response to Hamas. But that just doesn't add up with what's happening on the ground, because the ships they're hitting and sinking oftentimes have nothing to do with Israel or even the United States. They're just attacking these ships, and they've managed to completely shut down the Red Sea. And it's exposed that the United States conventional military deterrent is no longer in effect. And we've really seen the way warfare has changed based on the war in Ukraine. It's a drone-dominated world right now. So outside of nuclear weapons and the nuclear deterrent, there's no deterrent that the United States military has against potential enemies, because, again, while the Houthis are backed by Iran, Iran is still not considered a power on par with China or Russia. And yet the Houthi rebels have challenged the United States, and they have won. They've won.
Well, I'm going to ask you, is there anything short of, if the U.S. wants to deal with this problem, of just doing absolutely something devastating to the Houthis that would bring, I mean, my mind can go to various places, but I look, if they're going to stop it from happening, I want to ask you that in a second. But two things real quick. One of them is, how long ago was 1 trillion seconds? Well, 1 million seconds, 11 days ago. 1 billion seconds is 31.5 years ago. 1 trillion seconds is 31,000 BC. So that lets us know how enormous the number of 1 trillion really is. It's just like something that we didn't really, I mean, it was in our vocabulary, but we didn't really use it until we started watching our government several years ago start with this unbelievable debt. Okay, and then also, Britt, for people to connect with you, you have Substack, which is really, maybe that's the weapon of World War III, or whatever. You start looking at this. What solution do you see to the Houthi problem?
So the only way they could stop this now would be a ground invasion of Yemen and, carpet bombing destruction, real all-out war, which the United States really hasn't fought since World War II. We've always put these different restrictions on where we could attack, who we could attack, under what circumstances. So that, with conventional weapons, that's the only way we could take out this threat. It would be at great expense, and the world would cry out against it. I believe the only way that they could, outside of that, would be to become the dominant leader in drone swarm technology, which we just don't see yet. We don't see them deploying that. We know that they're working toward that. The Department of Defense announced last summer that something called the Replicator Initiative, where they wanted to be able to deploy hundreds of air-based, land-based, and sea-based drones simultaneously. But again, that's a far cry where the technological gap has not been filled by the United States. We've been slow to do that. Again, these other countries are, the nature of warfare now has changed, and it's not in favor of the types of assets that the United States military currently focuses on. So I don't know that there is a way for that to happen. Again, I pointed out to people, while I believe the Biden administration has shown weak leadership in the world, what's happening in the Red Sea isn't a result of a lack of decisiveness or a lack of leadership. It's simply that the United States Navy conventional forces are incapable of stopping these attacks, short of killing everybody in Yemen or creating some sort of drone swarms that don't yet exist to take on these drones that are being used in the Red Sea.
So, given that the U.S. Navy, the greatest Navy in the world, can't deal with this problem, I mean, what does this say to any other terror organization? What does it say to North Korea? What's it say to other very bad players? I mean, this is much bigger, I think, than any we are hearing about this anywhere apart from programs like this.
Right. Yeah. Well, it creates an extremely volatile and dangerous circumstance globally, because what's being done in the Red Sea could be done in the Persian Gulf. Iran sits upon the Strait of Hormuz, which is the narrowest part. It's where the Persian Gulf empties out into the rest of the world with shipping traffic. 40% of the world's exportable oil travels through that strait every single day. And Iran is more than capable of shutting that down if they wanted to. So they could do the same thing and say, well, we don't like the way Israel is acting. Till the world puts pressure on Israel to stop and gives in to our demands, we're going to shut the Strait of Hormuz, and you would see oil prices quadruple overnight. And then that would probably cause a major financial crisis as all sorts of second order effects of that take place. But it puts us in a very dangerous situation. I mean, we also know the Houthis discussed, whether it's true or not, but back in March, they talked about having hypersonic missiles. We also know that they launched a cruise missile earlier in the year that was maybe second or 2 seconds away from hitting the USS Gravely and potentially sinking that until it was taken out at the last second by the last line of defense by the Gravely. But if you see the Houthis sink a U.S. naval vessel, well, then what message does that send to the world? What happens to world financial markets when that happens? What happens to the dollar, U.S. debt? So all of these things are intertwined, and we could wake up one morning and find out that something like that has happened, and it would have massive repercussions all over the planet.
Yeah, and so the U.S., if that were to happen, would have to respond. I mean, if you don't respond, what's that message say? And then if you do respond, I mean, the potential for things escalating to a place that is completely out of control right now, as almost anywhere you look on the globe, is enormous. And this one is absolutely enormous, because this is what the Houthis are doing. And I think it was back during the Obama administration where over with Iran, didn't they take over some U.S. ship and take hostage for a part-time some of the
I think so. And I want to say that that happened at the beginning of the year as well. And that was in the Persian Gulf.
Yeah.
But a lot of these events have happened. And again, these things have taken place. We haven't seen a U.S. naval vessel sunk, but we've seen all sorts of shipping, cargo vessels and other vessels sunk in the Red Sea. And we've seen how they have directly attacked the U.S. Navy. And yet we have responded, but that response has not had the desired outcome that the United States would want, because the U.S. military conventional capability is obsolete at this point. It's similar to, we had the best horse-mounted cavalry, and it's the end of World War I, right? It's not that technology is obsolete now. It may still be the best cavalry in the world, but it doesn't stand a chance against machine guns and tanks. And so we're seeing the same thing play out on the battlefield here. We've seen it in Ukraine. We've seen almost all the conventional weapon systems that have gone into Ukraine are being taken out by drones. And those drones are evolving on a nearly everyday basis, becoming more sophisticated, operating in greater groups. I don't believe yet it's necessarily swarms. A lot of times they'll have what they call a mothership drone that controls the other drones around it, versus a decentralized swarm where you can't take out one particular drone and then take out the rest. But we're seeing that coming. We're seeing more and more of this come out onto the battlefield, and conventional weapons are obsolete against that type of drone warfare.
Wow. The things you're saying, biblically, we understand there's some geopolitical alignments that have to take place as we get closer and closer to the tribulation, and we have an understanding how things will be in the tribulation period. America, we're looking at things going, wow. I read a quote recently, I think it was Karl Marx who said it. It was something along the lines, if you want to destroy capitalism, you basically destroy the monetary system of that entity. So you look at it and go back to the first thing you were talking about with the challenge with money, what Saudi Arabia is threatening to do. You talk about the Red Sea. These things are all tied together. Do you think that I doubt the Houthis are there, have these drones going out thinking, hey, let's destroy the U.S. economy. That's our end game. However, my reading of the Bible, to me, I interpret as when it comes to a last days collapse of the economy, which will happen in the tribulation period, it seems to be purposeful in order for the powers that be at the top to be able to achieve the power they want. They basically make everybody else poor, and then they're able to seize. You just automatically seize things. People will give up their freedoms. They'll have to sell things off. They'll have to do all sorts of things in order to just survive and get by, or be willing to protect themselves. And it does give more and more power. The worse things get, the more power goes to those people who are at the top. And that's the way I see things going, regardless of what the Houthis' purpose in it is. Overall, this is going that way. Am I thinking right, you think?
Yeah, I think so. We've seen that throughout within the Bible itself, with Joseph and Pharaoh and the 7-year famine. Pharaoh had all that grain stored up because of what Joseph helped engineer and put into place, and that helped consolidate power in Egypt, as all these neighboring nations came and traded everything they had in order to survive. And I think, clearly the Bible says in Revelation 6, we're going to get to that point. I believe that's during the tribulation period. But leading up to that, we can still see this movement of power and influence away from the U.S. dominated global financial system and away from a United States military that projects power all over the globe to a more bifurcated system with other nations sharing power with the United States. And I tend to believe that what the Houthis are doing, whether the people operating on the ground know it or not, I think this is a direct attack on the United States and the United States currency and the dollar's reserve status. I think it's coming through Iran and the other BRICS nations. And the Achilles heel of the United States is our financial system, and is that dollar is the world's reserve currency. If they can take that out, again, there's no projecting military power across the globe as the United States if we don't have the financial means to do that. And all of these things act together to take that capability out. So, for instance, if you can no longer print dollars, eventually we may get to a point where they say we won't accept dollars for oil. We'll only accept some other currency or maybe even gold, whatever it may be. But that ability of the United States to print dollars for oil gives us the ability to project that power across the globe. And again, we're seeing that go away. Most people I've heard a lot in the last few years about, we're completely energy independent in the United States. That is not true. There's a lot more nuance to that, and what type of oil we're producing, how much longer we have of that, under what circumstances. We still import a tremendous amount of oil. And so this is a big deal, the end of the petrodollar and the end of this agreement. It means the end of the United States as the dominant, undisputed global superpower. And that's what the Bible tells us would happen. There's no mention when we read the end times events in the Bible of the United States. In fact, in Ezekiel 38 and 39, we read that no one comes to Israel's defense. And that could be that the United States has changed its mind, has a new administration that's not favorable toward Israel. But it could also be that the United States does not have the ability or the capability to come to Israel's aid and defense. And when you look at all the things that are happening, I think we're getting very close to that point in time.
Matthew chapter 24, it's in verse 12. He said, one of the signs of his coming and the end of the age, because lawlessness will abound, the love of many will grow cold. Check this out. Watch this. It's a short video. McDonald's employee, I'm not kidding you, a McDonald's employee opens up fire at the drive-through restaurant. Watch this. It's a short video. Check it out. I mean, okay, you look at this, and you and I are watching violence only escalate. Lawlessness is escalating. Now, think of this. I have more to show you, too. Think of this. In the last days, two things that seem to oppose each other are happening at the same time, according to the Bible. One is there's going to be complete control, right? Antichrist is going to have control on the system. You won't be breaking the law. There's certain cities you can go to. If you break the law, the city may be clean, the city may be perfect, but my friends that were just in Singapore said, hey, Singapore is that way. It's the perfect 15-minute city. Nobody breaks the law. Everything is under absolute control, right? So and that's what the Bible describes, but it also describes Jesus himself, the law, that lawlessness will abound and the love of many will grow cold. So how could you have lawlessness abounding yet have this complete control? It's because the lawlessness is the chaos that is going to be used for Antichrist to be able to assume his power. Don't let a crisis go to waste. It was James Madison who said, hey, crisis is the rally cry of the tyrant. So the tyrant, Antichrist, is coming. Create crisis. George Soros has mentioned this. You create the crises and the people will turn to you for a solution. Right? It's like the fireman, or the person selling fire extinguishers. He lights a fire in your backyard and then he goes and knocks on your front door and says, hey, I'm selling fire extinguishers. Hey, what a coincidence. You have a fire in your backyard. So these globalists, I believe, are intentionally creating chaos, lawlessness. Hence, the borders are blown open here in America. Over in Europe, it's really bad. I'll show you a video on that in France in just a second. But you look at all of these different dynamics. Why is it that the politicians and the media are complicit in making sure we're inviting lawlessness into our cities? Here in California, if you steal, check out this sign. If you steal something that's less than $950, you're not going to jail. That's just insanity. But this sign that you just saw, from a friend of mine told me this sign is actually posted in San Francisco. I haven't seen it, but it wouldn't surprise me. But we see it's out of the laws. So they're passing laws out of the lawlessness, out of the chaos. The people cry for a ruler to subdue it. That's why all these things are happening the way they are. Also here in California, they keep letting prisoners out of prisons. Why? They're prisons. They're in prison because they're criminals. Why let them out? It's intentional to create this thing. All right, check this out. Chicago violence. Look at this. Chicago violence. Unbelievable as you look at this. At least this just over the 4th of July, at least 87 shot by Sunday morning during July 4th weekend. Breitbart News reported at least 58 people were shot in the city during the first portion of the holiday weekend, Wednesday night to Friday alone. The violence was so great that ABC 7 Chicago Sun-Times pointed out one Chicago resident referred to the 4th of July as Assassination Day. By Sunday morning, the total was at least 87. ABC 7 / Chicago Sun-Times noted that many of the incidents involved multiple gunmen and also include drive-by shootings where the number of gunmen is unknown. So you have mass shootings that were taking place, and several people died, many people were injured, and this is supposed to be a city where they have gun laws. So we know gun laws don't work, but yet they keep doing this. Why? It increases the violence, it increases the chaos, and people are saying they don't actually do this on purpose. Yes, they do. Why is it that in every city, at least here in America, and you look at the same things going on in Europe, why is it that they double down on their insane laws when they know the hell that it's creating, the chaos, the lawlessness it's creating? It is intentional. Check this out. Chaos in California. Watch this video. This is just nuts. Chaos in California. And listen, this is Oakland gas station where this destruction of this business at the hand of a flash mob ransacked the store for 40 minutes. At least 70 people are estimating were part of just destroying the store. Imagine if you own that store. And they did, I mean, just destroy a business, complete lawlessness. And then check this out. This is over in France, the lawlessness there. Look at this lawlessness in France. Pretty unbelievable. This is from John Martin. John, a great brother who's posted some great things on his social media. The Final Hour 777. But look at this. These different areas of France, you have as he comments, a heavy police presence with water cannon equipped vehicles has been deployed to the Place de la République in Paris, where a post-election demonstration is taking place according to media reports. So many of you have seen these things over the weekend, and we see several different videos in here. But lawlessness, this type of thing is happening all over the globe. So what is really going on? It is exactly what Jesus said. And the scary part is, according to the words of Jesus himself, lawlessness is going to only increase in frequency and intensity like birth pains upon a pregnant woman. So we look at things and we go, wow, this is pretty bad. Well, it's going to get worse before it gets better. Well, actually, according to the Bible, it's going to get worse before it gets worse. And then eventually it gets better when Jesus comes back. But the reality of it, we're only going to see these things increase in frequency and intensity. Likewise, 2 Timothy chapter 3, in the last days, evil men will wax worse and worse. They aren't going to be worse and then get better. It's going to get worse and worse before Jesus comes. But this explains why we see everything happening the way that we are. And just with this one sign, we can go on for hours. You guys have your own stories wherever you live of the lawlessness that is beginning to abound. And imagine what's going to happen as we have places like here in the States where the borders are blown open and you have millions of people that are unaccounted for that are all over the States. We know there's sleeper cells. We know people have been let out of prisons. What's going to happen? Listen, I want to encourage you to trust in the Lord Jesus Christ. Also in Matthew chapter 24, just a few verses later, verse 25, Jesus said, of these things, see, I have told you these things beforehand. Why? So we would know. When we see them start to happen, we wouldn't live in fear, but our faith would be strengthened. We go, wait a minute, my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, who loves me, he said, it's going to look like this. Let me hold you through the process. I will keep you. Keep your eyes fixed on my word. It's going to be rough, but I'm going to get you there. So we would know, and we would know all of these are a sign, as he said, of his calling us home. Listen, look up. Lift up your head because your redemption draws near. Jesus.
Ja, de länder som har gått emot Israel och förbannat Israel har på ett eller annat sätt drabbats starkt de senaste åren här. Och vi kan kolla på den här videon här som kommer över Sydafrika. Ja, i första Mosebok 12:3 så står det: jag ska välsigna dem som välsignar dig och förbanna den som förbannar dig. I dig skall alla släkter på jorden bli välsignade. Internationella domstolen ska besluta om Sydafrikas förslag att beordra Israel att stoppa sin militära offensiv i Rafah. Och detta är ju en fullständig horribel tanke att Israel skulle då ställas till rätta inför folkmord. Ja, vänner, är detta som sker i det här videoklippet en slump? Eller är det Guds domar? Avgör själva.
South Africa is currently facing severe weather across the country, with flooding, storms, and ice and snow occurring erratically.
I'm fully put. Hey! Hi, Bo! Wait! Wait!
The Western Cape's coastline is being pounded by a relentless swell, prompting the South African Weather Service to upgrade the warning from level 6 to severe level 8. This rare escalation highlights the severity of the storm.
Holy shit. Because can you drive my car? My car is in the not saying you would come down here if you're coming from Boys Drive. It's like, no, it's cooking inside.
Hi, guys. I must still get home.
Severity of the situation facing coastal communities. In Cape Town, the fury of the sea is clearly evident. Huge waves, some reported reaching heights of meters, are pounding the coast, threatening coastal infrastructure and nearby properties.
Look at this, this really is a river. Are you okay, bro? You need to turn around and go around.
There's no
I'm gonna have to get out and help him. I can't let this guy be like this, stuck like this. Maybe he can get his bike back. Yeah. Ooh, there he goes. Okay, I need to get out of the way. Shit, dude, shame. Ooh, his bike is coming down the river, yeah.
The City of Cape Town's disaster management teams are working tirelessly to assess and mitigate the impact of this maritime attack. The city has recorded more than 200 millimeters of rain since the storm began, and more rain is expected in the coming days. Major roads were flooded, causing traffic chaos and isolating some communities.